Welcome to Chapter 34, Part 2, the global war that we enter in with World War I. So we're going to go over immediate causes, the lead up to war, and then some of the things that happened during the war. All right, the immediate origins of World War I. Francis Ferdinand's assassination, and the assassination of his wife, by the way, Sophia, and their unborn child, allowed the alliance system to bring one nation after another. So on June 28, 1914, Archduke Francis Ferdinand was assassinated in Sarajevo, in Bosnia-Herzegovina. This had been territory that was controlled by the Ottomans, but then became part of independent Serbia and then part of it was occupied by the Austro-Hungarian Empire in 1878 and then annexed in 1908. So this area wanted independence. They want to be part of a larger Serbian state. Apologize for the bell there. What started out as a localized dispute quickly grew into a continent-wide and then worldwide conflict. So on July 23rd, after the assassination, Austrians issued an ultimatum to Serbs. It was a list that they couldn't possibly fulfill. And so when the list wasn't fulfilled, like for example, on that list was that the Serbs would turn over their country to the Austrians. So when the list of demands wasn't met, on July 28th, the Austrians declared war. When that happened, Russia, who saw themselves as the defenders of the Serbs, mobilized to defend Syria. But when they mobilized to defend Syria against Austria-Hungary, they also mobilized against Germany. So Germany issued an ultimatum to Russia and France and said that they needed to get out of this situation. But on August 1st, just a day afterward, they declared war on Russia and France mobilized because remember, France was a part of the Triple Entente. On August 3rd, the Germans declared war on France, and in accordance with their Schieffelin plan, they invaded through Belgium. By invading through Belgium, that assured that Great Britain was going to be involved because Belgium was neutral. This is a British poster over here. And August 4th, Britain came in to defend Belgium. So you go from having no one at war within a matter of months to having everyone at war. It's kind of like a domino effect. Then each of their colonies gets involved as well. So the two armed camps became the Triple Entente, now joined by Italy, and the Central Powers, or the Triple Alliance, now joined by the Ottomans. Here's the Schieffelin War Plan. This plan required Germans to, instead of going through this highly militarized front here, to invade France, they had to go through Belgium, again, a neutral country. That was because this area was not heavily fortified with soldiers or military stuff. So they thought, okay, we're going to attack Paris. Instead of going through our shared border, we're going to go through Belgium. Now, the goal was to defeat France very swiftly and then turn their attention to Russia. But unfortunately, they were stopped at the outside of Paris. And this was such a swift battle that the Parisian soldiers were actually shuttled there in taxicabs from Paris. After this swift war, which pretty much everybody was excited for, as we'll learn in our readings, the enthusiasm of August 1914 quickly turned to horror. Germany was halted at the Marne, and that left them without any chance for quick victory. And what developed was a long and bloody stalemate on the Western Front. So the Western Front is Europe. This evolved into trench warfare. Now, trench warfare, you've got your frontline trench and then you've got no man's land. This would be full of technology, like landmines, barbed wire, etc. And in trench warfare, basically you're trying to get from your trench to the other person's trench, which leads to minimal territory gains with a massive loss of life. Now, these different countries, in order to break the stalemate, decided to go into an arms race. So they developed more technologically advanced weapons, and more technologically advanced weapons is code for better at killing people. So the tactics were very old school, almost unchanged since the Revolutionary War. They would send lines of men into these new technologies, whereas the weapons were very modern, and this led to an incredible loss of life. The Eastern Front, or Russia, was much more mobile. The Germans were able to outmaneuver the Russians and push them back hundreds of miles, but not quickly enough to alter the course of the war. So you can see again, the Eastern Front is very mobile, whereas the Western Front pretty much just stays put. So Germany starts here, they end here. Like I alluded to in the previous slide, technological advances gave the defenses a tremendous advantage, but generals continued to employ traditional infantry charges. Glorious adventure gave way to a sense of carnage as soldiers marched straight into no man's land of landmines, hand grenades, machine gun, barbed wire, and poison gas. The loss of soldiers for almost no gain in 1916 battles such as Verdun and the Somme, both in France, characterized the pointless bloodshed on the Western Front. In Verdun, 315,000 French were killed and 280,000 German casualties, so killed in action and also wounded in action. At the Somme, the British won and gained a few yards, but there were 420,000 casualties. And there were also 60,000 casualties on the first day. 60,000. Now, to compare that to a more modern war, in Iraq, in the whole period of the war, there have been about 4,500 Americans killed, a little less than that. Now, there have been about 100,000 Iraqis killed in that war. But again, that's over a huge period of time. So you can understand just how brutal these battles were. Again, you can see where the battles of the Somme and the Marne are, and then the German advance here. As I alluded to in the previous slide, the reason for this was all these new technologies. Barbed wire, which was originally used in the western part of America to keep cattle in, now it's used to keep humans in. The Gatling gun, which turned into the machine gun, which could mow down these infantry troops. Gas, which was first used by the Germans in 1915, and one of the most advanced gases, mustard gas, created 800,000 casualties. Mustard gas, named for its color, would literally cause you to cough up your lungs. So you basically drown to death. Tanks, which were initially ineffective because of the extremely muddy, wet conditions of trench warfare, eventually technologically got better. And many of them were actually lost in counterattacks. So when a different group would take over a trench, those weapons would be lost. And then airplanes were used in World War I. There was limited bombing. In fact, the first bombers would basically hang out in their airplanes and then drop a bomb over the side at a lower airplane, right? So that's originally the bombers. The first dogfights were actually people fighting with pistols in the air. They were used instead mainly for reconnaissance. So you would fly over your enemy's trenches and check out what they were doing and then report back. And lastly, submarines were heavily used in World War I, especially by, for our purposes, the Germans, because that's what got America involved in the war. So here's some other technologies and some of the ones we already or heard about. The Zeppelin, which was a silent flying machine used for bombings. Um, sort of effective, sort of ineffective, very scary. Flamethrowers, which could launch flames. You've seen these probably if you've seen Saving Private Ryan. They could launch flames 20 feet. Grenade launchers. The first grenades, as it turned out, were not very effective either. And in the first grenades, they couldn't really get the pin right, which is a little thing at the end of the grenade. You know that when it's pushed in, it makes a grenade go off. And people would lob these grenades back and forth from trench to trench like hot potatoes. Very deadly hot potatoes. Poison gas, which you can see up here. People get into their foxholes to avoid the gas, but it travels along the ground. And then these machine guns, and these guys are wearing their gas masks. Here's a French tank and a British tank. A little worse for wear there. You can also see the huge devastation of the environment that comes with war with this picture. And last but not least, the horrors of war. Hundreds of people killed, their bodies just left. Um, People getting caught in the barbed wire. You can see here why barbed wire was such a horrific thing. And then terrible disfigurement. People often survived their injuries from battle, hence so many casualties. However, their lives were forever changed because of disfigurement, because of amputation, because of shell-shockedness, all of these terrible consequences. And we'll be learning more about those after break. So you're ready to move to the third part of the PowerPoint. Excuse me.